We're here today with the Many Hats of Coco. This is Coco. I am Theo Czuk. We are at the Tronson Art Gallery in Springfield, and we're happy that you joined us today. Today we're going to be joined by Rod Collins, and he's a local author, written a number of books, modern, contemporary Western, and I'm very, very excited to have him today. So we'll go over and sit down at the couch and introduce Rod. Thank you. Have a seat.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me.
Oh, you betcha, you betcha.
Flattered.
I've read you. I had to have you. As writers, we're having a tough time getting our work out there, and so hopefully this program can help you get some exposure. What were some of your influences? Where did your writing come from, and how long have you been writing?
You know, I think I've been writing forever. I grew up when the storytelling, oral tradition of storytelling was a primary form of entertainment. I remember my first years in a mill camp, coal oil lamps, no electricity, so we entertained ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Would this be around campfire or?
Just around the dinner table, maybe.
Oh.
People told stories, they played guitars, and the good storytellers, like my grandfather, Charlie True, were always welcome. And he was full of stories. He always had stories about characters, and somehow or another he kept track of everyone. I wouldn't say he was a gossip exactly, but he had his finger on the pulse of the local community. And then I think the second influence, when I was 5, we moved next door to the school. And I would hang on the fence, and I'd want to be there with all of those kids in the teeter-totters and the swings and playing ball.
At 5, and you wanted to get inside.
Oh, I did. And the first day of school, this little girl, Marion Flowers, wrote some words on the blackboard, and I didn't know those words. And I was not happy being one-upped by a girl.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So I got busy, and by the end of the week, I knew things like cat and hat and those words we first.
Yeah, that'll show her.
Yeah. At any rate, so I owe Marion a debt of gratitude, and I think I told her last year, or at least got through a friend.
Yeah.
When I was 7, I read my first Western novel. I had no idea to this day who it was. It might have been Zane Grey. He was big at the time. And that just fed my appetite for reading. And when I was about 13, now the Russian thing was really big when I was growing up. And so I wrote this fantasy about my friends and I taking to the hills when the Russians had invaded. And it's a lot like Red Dawn that got out. I'm sorry they didn't find my book first, but
there you go.
We had a great time with that. People would say, my classmates would say, "Can I be in your book?" And I go, "Sure, it's a war book, cast of thousands." So at any rate, that got me started. That kept me going all the way through high school. And then I got sidetracked a little bit, working and going to college. But I did edit the college newspaper. And then I did a stint as a writer-editor for the Oregon Department of Education. And then I got married, and I had children and a career, and the writing sort of stewed over here, and it would niggle at the back of my mind that time was marching on, So when I retired, my good wife Vi and I sat down, and I said, "I want to see if I can write a novel. I just want to see." That was the first goal. Your ambition grows after the first novel, but anyway. So we set up. We wrote a mystery. Murder mystery, set up the whole thing in the clues and all of that. I wrote biographies for each of the characters, right down to how tall, what they weighed, color of eyes, scars, that kind of thing. And then we created a mythical town, and the more we worked on this town, the more it became Lakeview, Oregon, where we had some of our happiest years, I believe. And so I said, oh well, what the heck. The town will forgive me if they don't like what I've written. So we set up this situation. The character, the central character to the first 5 novels, a sheriff named Henry Bud Blair. And I modeled him loosely after the chief of police in Monmouth, Oregon, when I was going to school there.
So it was actually a character you knew?
Well, yeah, and he was a nice guy. He didn't carry a gun in those days.
Mm-hmm.
He had a club, big club, and he had a big white dog, Chow. And we asked him one time, how come you don't carry a gun? And he said, well, if I want to shoot somebody, I don't have time to go home and get it. So anyway, that's kind of, in Spider Silk, his friend Nancy Sixkiller says, you don't even carry a gun. And he said, well, I don't really like guns, but at any rate, that's where I get some of my characters and where he came from.
Yeah.
Try to model them after people you know. And I know a lot of people.
Yeah.
I've lived a long time.
So you have a new book coming up too, right?
I do.
Are you working on it now, or is it?
I am. I'm about 65,000 words into this one.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Not Before Midnight.
Okay. How deep will it get? You're at 65. What are you looking at?
I think we're looking maybe at 75,000. I don't know for sure.
Yeah, of course.
I don't always know when I start writing where it's going to go. I think I do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like Bitter's Run. I had this notion I was going to write a shoot 'em up Tony Western book. I always wanted to write one of those like Louis L'Amour, super horse, Superman, super dog,
Mm-hmm.
taking on the bad guys. And somehow or another, it didn't get that way at all. The characters took over, the Oregon Trail took over. This beautiful redheaded young woman named Morgan Egan, she took over because she had an entirely different idea about where John Bitter was going and who he was going with,
Mm-hmm.
So they do that. It's kind of evolved, It's kind of like painting pictures. You don't always know how it's going to turn out.
Yep. Yep.
So, anyway.
I would kind of like, I understand you brought a sample of what's coming up, and how would you feel about doing a little reading for us?
Sure, I'd like that.
Let me set you up. I'm going to give you a little bit of a podium thing.
Okay.
And get you set up here and have you, and I believe this is it, correct?
All right.
Yeah. Let's get you going here.
I see somebody over there giving me the go ahead sign. I'm working on a book called Not Before Midnight. And like the first four books in the Bud Blair series, the central touchstone is Bud Blair, his deputies. They keep showing up in the books, and the little town of Lakeview, which is deep southeast Oregon. If you haven't been down there, it's well worth the trip. There's Abraham 2,000 feet above the valley floor, just magnificent and sort of forbidding in a way. At any rate, this one takes us into some other parts of the world. Bud Blair and Nancy Sixkiller, who ran the Emergency Services Center, have broken up. And he hasn't been worth shooting for several months. It sort of took the shine off of his life. But anyway, here we are, Chapter 4, Nancy Sixkiller. After Nancy found Bud had been shot again, she decided her mother needed her more than Bud did. She said it was because her mother had a stroke, but she also said she couldn't stand the notion of being married to a cop, specifically to Bud Blair. Too much stress and worry that he wouldn't make it home at night. She also said she was moving back to Yakima. So he took the engagement ring she handed him, put it back in its little velvet box, and then unhappily tucked it away in its hidden safe out at the cabin. He was so busy for a while tracking a killer and fending off a bomb-wielding drug cartel assassin And he didn't have much time to think about Nancy or what had expired between them. But now that Lake County was living through a relatively peaceful spell, he had time to do a proper job of feeling sorry for himself. Her voice on the phone last night brought all that business flooding back. "Bud?" she asked when he answered his cell phone. "Yeah." "It's me, Nancy." "Okay, what do you want?" "I want to hear your voice. I want to let you know I have my old job back." Nancy thought he sounded startled when he said, "Here in Lakeview?" The sound of her old happy giggle and the vision of her dusty complexion, her beautiful expressive green eyes, and her shiny auburn flecked black hair tore his heart. "Yes." She paused and said, "But I want to see you. I think I have some explaining to do." He was suspicious about what, but he suckered in anyway. "When?" "About tomorrow night at the cabin." "Why?" He heard the catch in her voice when she said, "Because I love you? Because I'm sorry? Because I worry about you as much as if we were married? Because I just miss you. Are you going to be an asshole about this?" That was a lot of territory to take in, especially after he thought the broken engagement was behind him. But he said, "Okay, make it about 7. I'll burn us a steak." He didn't know if it was the hint of tears or the hint of the old fire in her voice that suckered him, but there it was. Nancy was back. Kicked himself several times for his lack of spine, but it didn't dampen his excitement at all. So he got busy picking up newspapers, magazines that cluttered the cabin, sweeping the hardwood floor for the first time in a month, shaking out the area rugs, putting books back in the bookshelves, doing a week's worth of dirty dishes, making a quick pass at the bathroom, and bagging all the paper plates and plastic forks he was living with. Fired up his little CD player and listened to Take 5 and Dave Brubeck's marvelous syncopated rhythm while he tidied the cabin. He realized it was the first time in months he had listened to any of his old jazz music. Even as he cussed himself for being spineless, he used Windex and a kitchen towel to tackle the windows looking out at the north end of Dog Lake and at the mass of willows that hid his small boat dock. After Nancy left, it just hadn't seemed like housekeeping mattered much. Feeling a bit guilty, he had to ask himself, why did it matter now? He knew, but he just didn't want to admit it. Beebe, his old partner from his detective days with the Portland Police Bureau, nagged him about letting things go to hell. And he wasn't kind about the tummy bugs Bub was growing. You need to get off your ass and start walking, he'd say. Or get a bike and start riding if you don't want to walk. And Beebe had plenty of opportunity to nag after he retired. Bud's initial enthusiasm over Beebe's plans to build a new log home on a pine-covered lot next to Bud's A-frame faded after Beebe took to nagging him. It wore the shine right off his welcome. They were still friends, but they were working up to another fist fight, just like the one years ago at the Greeks, a cop bar in Portland. It reached a point where Bud breathed a sigh of relief if Beebe's bronze Lexus SUV wasn't parked in Beebe's driveway. It meant he could sneak into his place without Beebe knowing. Bud even pulled his 14-foot boat out of the garage and took to hiding his pickup in the garage so he could live in guilt-free squalor. His friendship with Beebe was starting to read like a scene from the film Grumpy Old Men, only he didn't know whether he was Jack Lemmon or Walter Matthau. Between the new mountain bike he found leaning against his garage door yesterday, which he didn't doubt for a minute was Beebe's doing, and the phone call from Nancy, he knew his days of self-indulgent pouting were about to come to an end, and he wasn't sure he wanted them to. There was a certain amount of freedom in just not giving a damn.
Let's just take a quick break. I'm just going to ask you to.
Well, thank you for not leaving.
Turn it up.
Thank you. That was a wonderful reading.
Thank you.
And how about we talk a little bit more?
Sure.
Let's sit down. I
Coco
understand.
has a few more questions, Theo.
That's what I hear. Coco, are you sure? Okay, we're gonna get it in here.
Do you have a say in like the covers of your books, what goes on the front?
Yes, I do. I have a designer met online, lives in North Carolina. I've never met him. He did the design for the first 4 after a lot of input by us. But this one, my editor and I basically designed this one. Yeah. We liked it better than those.
I want to know if I can get your books on Kindle.
Yes,
Yes.
every book is on Kindle.
And what types of reading do you do? What types of genre do you do?
Personal books that I read, oh boy. I like the major writers, Grisham, and I like Louis L'Amour. I know he doesn't have much standing in the literary world, but he can start a story quicker than anybody I ever read. I mean, just boom, you are there. But I read everybody. Right now, I'm reading some science fiction. I just finished a historical novel by Jeff Shara. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Called it's about the lead up to the American Revolution. Good book. So I read a lot of Civil War history. I read a lot of novels. I'm really fond of historical novels, which is probably why I wrote this. Some friends and I spent 2 years researching this, and there's some nice touches in there that are not my fault. They belong to somebody else. Okay.
Are your stories plot-driven or character-driven? Or do they evolve organically? How do they come about?
You know, that's really a good question. I love characters. In the books, have a guy named Buffalo Boggs, who runs a tavern in Paisley, Oregon. I don't know if you've ever been to Paisley. They have a mosquito festival there every year, by the way. They had 10,000 people there last year. So, at any rate, the guy at Valley Falls is patterned after a man I met at Burns Junction. Dead of winter, it's cold, we stop in, and he says, "You want a beer?" And I said, my dad goes, because my dad knew him, you know. And so I said, "Well, yeah, okay." So he charged me for 2, and he drank 1, you know. So those kind of characters grow in. I think the land is one of the characters. I think the high desert is a character all unto itself. And I have to, my editor, Eva Long, and my good wife keep telling me that I shouldn't spend so much time describing the country because it bogs down. So I don't have as much description of the country as I would like, you know. Anyway, but it's also plot driven. There are a lot of things going on in our world, and I seem to stumble into writing about them. Not Before Midnight, a part of that book is about human trafficking. Sad story, but it goes on all the time, and I think it's a story that needs to be told. Mariah's song is about a girl who lives with her mother, her drug-addicted mother, and her live-in boyfriend, who's evil, period. And this is a story about a girl who runs, and that's based loosely on a girl that Vi and I knew, 13 years old, hit the road. It was a matter of survival. So those are the kinds of things that I find myself gravitating towards, stories that are true to life. It's fiction, but they're still true to life. Okay.
That's great. I want to mention again that you have the book coming out, Not Before Midnight. I'm looking forward to that. Do you have any other appearances coming out? Any book signings or anything that we should be aware of?
No, I may get an invitation to KTVZ, the Bend TV station.
Oh, are you going to be on that?
I think so.
Oh.
I don't know.
Well, I hope you are.
Yeah. But mainly I just stay in the safety of my office and type books.
What I'd like to do before we let you go is I'd like you to tell everybody your website, where they can find you.
Oh, sure. I have a website. You can find me at rod@brightworkspress.com, or you can go to simply Brightworks Press, and it'll pop up.
Just so you know, that's RODCOLLINS, Rod Collins.
Yeah.
So, Thank you for being with us today.
Well, my pleasure.
Just a pleasure.
And thank you.
You betcha. You
Yeah.
betcha. I hadn't even thought of what I'm going to do. This is just a spontaneous thing, so I'm going to do, let's start out with a love song. Can't believe this feeling I'm feeling for someone like you, lost in the deepest gloom and despair. And there's someone like you, someone like you, someone to answer for me, someone like you, a midnight dancer for me, someone like you. I thank the moon, love. I thank the summer for someone like you, and I sing this tune though. There's nothing to sing without someone like you. Someone like you. Someone I listen to. Someone like you. With vision to see through. Someone like you.